Hello again. This is Chester Britt with Ariano Associates. I want to welcome everyone to the Envision Palmdale 2045 webinar. And thank you very much for taking time out of your busy Saturdays to join us this morning. Typically, this would probably be a live meeting, but because of the COVID pandemic, we're doing a live webinar so that you can participate in the general plan update process the city is going through, which is very important. We're very excited to have this format available to us and to you to share with you the important information that's going on and to update you on the process and the progress we've been making, and also to get your input. So I want to thank you for joining us. On your screen, you see some information on how to connect to the webinar. If you haven't had the experience of joining a webinar before, you might be finding some of the information of how to connect properly with your audio and video a little challenging. So we want to just take a few minutes to explain some of that to you this morning. There should be a dialog box or a pop-up box on the right side of your screen that has a red arrow that points either in or out, left or right. That will either expand that box or contract it. If you could go back, you bet, to the previous slide. I'm also going to go over how to connect to the audio. Once you're able to expand or contract that box, you should be able to check your audio settings. Please make sure to connect the audio through your computer or by calling in by your phone. If you are hearing an echo, it's more than likely because you're trying to do both at the same time. So if you have your computer on and you're calling through your phone, you might be hearing a bad echo. You'll just need to disconnect your phone and try to run it through your computer. That would probably be your best solution. So to connect by your phone, if you need to, you will need to call 877-309-2074, and then you'll enter an access code of 940-773-954. And then once you do that, you'll need to enter your unique audio PIN, which will appear on your screen. If you're having some of the audio issues I mentioned, you should probably try the following. On the right panel that I just mentioned, under the audio tab, you'll select either the computer audio or to join via the phone. And if you dial the phone, you'll need to enter the access code that I just read off, 940-773-954, and the audio PIN that will appear on your screen. Just to note, the audience will be automatically muted during the presentation. You will have an opportunity to raise your hand and ask questions. And that is also part of that right-hand panel that you see. There should be a question bar in gray that you can see and click on, and you can click in there and type in a question at any time during the presentation. We'll be able to see that, and at the appropriate time, we'll be able to read off those questions and get answers to those things. There's really three main ways to participate. One is to raise your hand. You also should be able to see underneath the red arrow on the dialog box that I mentioned, what looks like someone's hand. If you click on that, we'll be able to see that you're essentially raising your hand to ask a question or to provide information. And at the appropriate time, we'll be able to read off your name, and then we'll also be able to unmute your mic so that you can speak to us and we can hear you. When you do that, though, you are also able to mute yourself. So even though we'll unmute your mic officially so that you can participate, you'll need to unmute yourself if you're muted so that we will be able to hear you. You cannot unmute yourself unilaterally. We have to do it first, and then you can unmute yourself as well. You can also text us if you are joined by phone and you're not looking at a computer screen. The text number is 661-241-8994. I'll read that again in case you need to grab a pencil or a pen. It's area code 661-241-8994. And I will read that off one more time later on in the presentation in case you missed it. But that's how you would text us a message. So three main ways to participate: raise your hand. You can click on that hand button. Chat through the chat feature on that dialog box on the right-hand side of your screen, or to text us at 661-241-8994. The protocols for participation, comments or questions will be accepted. We would ask that you would avoid using any profanity or offensive language. If that happens, we will immediately mute you and you will no longer be able to participate. So please have the courtesy of just being level-headed when you're making your comments, and keep them concise and brief and to the point, so that we are able to understand what it is you're asking or telling us, and then we can respond appropriately to that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Carlene Saxton, who is the project manager with the City of Palmdale. She'll be giving a warm introduction from the city and then handing it off to our project manager, who'll be giving the presentation.
Great, thank you so much, Chester. Hi, everyone. I'm Carlene Saxton here at the city, and like Chester said, I'm the project manager. We just wanted to say thank you for taking the time today to be here with us, to learn about the general plan, and to provide us with some feedback. It's a huge project, and we're really excited about it, and we feel like hearing from you is the most important part. So thank you for being here, and we really look forward to that interaction. We have some polls throughout this presentation, as well as chances for you guys to speak up and tell us what you think. We also have Megan Taggart, who is a senior planner here at the city, and Ben Fiss, who is a senior planner as well. They're part of our large general plan team. So once again, thank you, and I'll give it back to Simran.
Thanks, Carlene. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on your busy Saturday morning. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to provide your feedback on this very important project, which is the update of the city's general plan. The last time the city updated the plan comprehensively was over 25 years ago. So this is a big effort and a very important project, and we really appreciate the time you're taking to being with us today. We hope you'll find the presentation informative and helpful, and we look forward to your feedback. I'm Simran Malhotra. I'm a principal with Ramey & Associates. We are leading a multidisciplinary team for this project. We had met with some of you during the early stages of the project when we asked about issues and opportunities facing the city of Palmdale. And we are here today to get feedback on the next phase of the project, which is land use alternatives. I would also like to introduce some of our other team members who are here today. We have Melissa Stark, who's with Ramey & Associates. She's an integral part of our team. And then from Ariano Associates, we have Celeste Milam. And then there's other support staff from Ariano who are online as well, Danielle Rodriguez, that's Jimenez, and others. So briefly, the purpose of our meeting today is to give you an overview of where we are in the process, what we have heard so far from the community, what the larger vision themes are, and then of course spend some time discussing the land use alternatives. Throughout the presentation, we'll stop for questions, and then we'll also ask you to participate in some brief polls along the way to get your feedback. So let's get started. Begin with, I have a question for you. Melissa, if you'd like to start the first poll. Before learning about this event, had you previously heard about the Palmdale 2035 General Plan? Great. I'll close the poll here and share the results. 73% did hear about the project before, so that's great. Hopefully this presentation will be engaging, and those who hadn't heard about this project will share the information with their friends and family and continue to be involved and help us get the word out. So let's get started. First, what is a general plan? A general plan is a document that establishes the city's long-term vision for the next 25 years. It describes how a community will change and grow and what the community's values and priorities are for its future. It is essentially a roadmap for the future of a city, and it contains goals, policies, and implementing actions that provide direction to city staff, city commissions, and city council in their decision making. And every city in California is required to have a general plan. We expect this project to take 2 to 3 years, and we started a little over a year ago, and now we are in the third phase of a 6-step process. The first 2 steps are focused on learning about the city and creating a vision and guiding principles that will steer what goes into the general plan. We are currently in phase 3, which is reviewing alternatives for land use, which establishes what land use goes where. For the past few weeks, we've been asking you and other members of the community your opinions on these alternatives, and we'll take the responses we hear from you all to the Planning Commission and City Council to get their feedback as well, and then direction for the development of the preferred alternative. That alternative will become the basis of the land use plan that goes into the general plan document, and it'll be accompanied by the other required and optional elements of a general plan. And then that document will be reviewed by the public again, as well as the decision makers before it's adopted. We expect to be at that stage by fall of 2022, so about a little over 2 years from now. And throughout this process, we have multiple ways for the community to engage and provide feedback. This general plan effort has been the most extensive engagement effort since the last general plan, which, as I noted earlier, was over 25 years ago. In the first phase of engagement, which was over the summer and fall of last year, we focused on learning from you all what was important in the city, what makes Palmdale special, what are the issues and challenges facing the city, and what the future of the city should be. During this phase, we met with almost 600 residents in person. Over 800 participated in an online survey that we had conducted. And we reached out to the community in a variety of ways. Most of the materials were bilingual. The flyers, the posters, the survey, all were offered in both languages to reach the broadest cross-section of Palmdale residents. Throughout this process, we've also been working with a general plan advisory committee that was established by the City Council at the start of the project. The general plan advisory committee is intended to advise the general plan team and give us direction as we take the project through to its completion. In fact, I'd like to acknowledge there are a few members of the advisory committee who are here in attendance today. So thank you for joining us. Based on what we had heard from the community, the City Council, and working with the GPAC, the general plan team has prepared and refined vision themes. These are meant to be broad, to provide a broad framework to guide future decision making. These 10 themes are broad and address all aspects of life in Palmdale. Some of these include creating a vibrant and active downtown, diversifying the local economy with more job options, providing more housing choices for residents from all income and ability levels, preserving Palmdale's natural setting, providing quality medical and mental health care, and creating a safe and healthy city, among others. I'll pause here for any questions. And then we have a question for you all. We have a question from Gwen Schiff. We'll wait to close the poll, and then we'll go ahead and answer questions. Okay, so everyone has voted. Let's see. The question was, have you participated in previous Palmdale 2045 activities or events? And 42% said yes, and 58% said no. So this is it's good to hear that more of you are getting involved in this project. So that's good to hear. Okay, let's go to questions first. Gwen Schiff. Celeste, Chester, would you mute?
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Yes, go ahead.
We want to know if there's a plan, like how much land will be preserved for daffodil trees or nature preserves.
Okay, thank you for that question. Right now, I'll answer that question, and it's a very good and important question, but I'd like to hold that question for a little bit later in the presentation. Some of these questions will be answered in the presentation, so if you can hold that thought. Right now, I just wanted to see if you had any specific questions about what I have presented so far.
Do you want to read them out loud, Jenny?
Simran, we have one more question from the audience. What is the vibrant plan for the downtown from Kenneth Williams and the timeline?
Okay. Again, both good questions. I'll be talking about that as we go through, so I'll come back to those. Thank you, Kenneth, for your question. Okay. We had a second poll as well. Melissa, did you want to start that? And this question is asked, to what extent do you agree with the major vision themes? And you can say whether you agree, strongly agree, are neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. Okay, people are still responding. Great. Okay. Oh, still voting. It looks like, yeah, looks like we have everyone who was going to vote. So we have 43% who strongly agree, 33% who agree. So 3/4 agree or strongly agree, 14% neutral, and 10% disagree. Great, thank you for that. Let's see. By the way, there was a question in the question box about how do we get a recorded version of this presentation. We will post the recording on the project website, which is palmdale2045.org. It'll also be available on the project's YouTube channel, which is Palmdale 2045. So it should be up in the next day or so. It takes a little while to download it and get it ready for posting. Okay. So let's see. The next few slides give us some background on what land uses, what the existing land uses are in the city, and what the current general plan has in terms of designations for land use. So land uses can be classified as residential, and within that you have single family or multifamily. Non-residential uses include retail, restaurants, hotels, office, industrial, and business park, among other uses. And public and institutional uses include city halls, public facilities such as schools, hospitals, and parks. This map shows the distribution of what is built today in Palmdale. This has Antelope Valley Mall here in the red. The bright pink is Plant 42. The residential uses are in the yellow across the city. And there's protected open space on the southwest portion of the city. And then there's extraction uses on the southeast portion of the city. The most predominant use, though, is gray on the map, as you can see, and that is vacant land. This graph shows that almost 2/3 of the city is currently vacant, and the next most predominant use is single-family residential. Whether a property is vacant or not, each property has a designation as to what could be built on it per the general plan. So the general plan today establishes what the use could be, where it is located, and what the intensity or the density of that use is. The land use map that we will prepare in the update will look a little bit different than what this map says, but each property will have a designation associated with it. So even if it's not built on today, it could be for the land use designation. This is the same map in a little bit more detail. As you can see, the predominant use here is in yellow, and that's single family residential use across the city. The pink or the magenta color is manufacturing uses. The bright blue in this area between the 14 and Plant 42 is business park. And then there's extraction uses over on the southwestern portion of the city limits. Now briefly, let's get started on the land use alternatives. And to start with, why do we consider alternatives? And the purpose of the alternatives is to test different land use and urban design patterns. And what that tells us is it allows us to understand what the trade-offs are between these alternatives and what implications of a certain type of layout or a mix of land use might be. And then this leads us to writing policies and implementation actions that are needed to make that land use map a reality. So the alternatives vary in different ways, and they test different things. So first, they test what the land uses are, so what the mix of land uses should be, where they are located or the pattern of it, how much of any particular land use is allowed, which is the intensity of land uses. And then we evaluate these for multiple metrics or evaluation criteria, and these include things like how many jobs could be created under any of these scenarios, how many units would be generated if they were all built, how does the layout affect travel patterns? Does it encourage walkability, or does it encourage more automobile use? How does it affect cost of living because of things like that? So as I noted earlier, right now we are receiving input on the alternatives. We'll take that input to the Planning Commission and City Council in September, and then we'll develop the preferred alternative later this fall. I'll pause for any questions about the process and what the alternatives are intended to test. And if there are other more general questions, if you can hold them till later in the presentation. Okay, not hearing any, I'll keep moving. The next set of slides provide the background context for the development of the alternatives. We analyze the natural context and constraints as they relate to areas prone to wildfire, floods, and earthquakes. These three maps show just that this is the San Andreas Fault. These are the areas which are more prone to wildfire, so they are the high risk and very high risk areas. And then this last map shows areas which are more prone to flooding. We also considered which areas are possibly impacted by soil conditions, where plants and other natural resources are located, such as Joshua trees and other vegetation types, and then also where the streams and water bodies are. Location of physical constraints, such as the Union Pacific Rail Line, State Route 14, the aqueduct, also impact where development might go, and how people might traverse along those constraints or across those constraints. And most importantly, what are the areas that are serviced by utilities and infrastructure, and where new utility or infrastructure investments are being considered. We looked at the distribution of the vacant land, which is shown in the darker gray on your map. And then when we overlaid the constraints, we identified a central core area where development is most likely in the next 25 years. The rest of the city, the rest of the area within the city is considered stable, either because it's already developed or it's unlikely to develop because of the variety of constraints that we discussed. Regardless of whether an area falls within this core area or not, will have a general plan land use designation in the final plan. But in this, for the alternatives, we focused our attention to this core area, which is on your map shown outlined in red. Our team's economists also identified near and long-term opportunities for different kinds of land uses in Palmdale. For example, today there's mostly a demand for single-family homes, but in the mid to long term, there's a need for more multifamily housing options and amenities that accompany such developments. They also identified that there's with additional infrastructure west of Plant 42 and between Plant 42 and State Route 14, there's a short-term opportunity to capture pent-up industrial demand that exists in the city today. Over the long term, there might be the possibility of additional industrial and aerospace development to the larger East Side site. They also looked at what the market demand was for the next 25 years and how much space there is in the city to accommodate it. And without reading through these numbers, I'll just say that it was pretty clear that given the amount of vacant land in the city, and even in that core area that I had shown on the previous map, there's more than enough land to accommodate all the demand within that space. I'll again pause for any questions about this portion of the presentation. Looks like Gwen Schiff and then Miguel Rodriguez. Celeste, are they muted?
Simran, just as a reminder, we are unmuting people, but they need to unmute themselves.
Okay. Okay, Gwen, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question? Okay, while Gwen's figuring that out, let's go to Miguel Rodriguez.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My question is in regard to, I was looking at the numbers, it's about 62%, you said, vacant lot use. Now, is that vacancy as ready to, let's say somebody wanted to open a business or make some houses or something like that? Or are there still places that you cannot build something into?
So, yeah, no, that's a good question. So all the vacant land in the city, it depends on what the land use designation or the zoning on that property is. So if it is zoned for, say, residential, you could build on it today, but there would be some constraints that come into play, and that include whether you have, water service, sewer service, if there are roads that extend to that portion of the city, given how large it is. So assuming all those constraints are met, development could occur. However, the reason we are looking at a smaller, more focused area is because that's where all of these amenities are already available. And it is more efficient to build in those areas than out in the periphery.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Okay, so let's keep going. We have prepared tailored land use designations for various kinds of land uses in Palmdale, and what this means is these are the land uses that will be permitted in the future. And these are the kinds of land uses we want to see develop in Palmdale. Some of these are already in use in the current general plan, and some are new designations that will allow for different types of development that you don't see in Palmdale today to occur. So for example, there are 6 single-family designations in the city today, and you can see these are the ones with the gray box behind them. And these are single-family zone or designations which allow a different lot size. So from 2.5 to 5 acres in the equestrian residential, all the way down to a smaller 5,000 to 7,000 square foot lot in what's mixed neighborhood 1. What the general plan doesn't allow today is other types of housing, which we call middle housing. So this would include small lot development, cottage clusters, courtyard homes, triplexes, duplexes, and even fourplexes or quadplexes. So we are introducing additional designations to capture those housing types. We're also introducing mixed use designations, and mixed use is when you have a mix of 2 uses, usually commercial and retail with residential, and it can be organized vertically in a building, so retail on the ground floor and residential above, or it can be horizontal where you have retail or commercial uses in the front and residential uses in the back, and those are standalone. And so we have 4 new designations at varying intensities that are being proposed. In terms of commercial, office, and industrial uses, there are 2 existing designations, one for neighborhood commercial. So this is your where you would go for your daily uses, daily services and goods. So you would have your grocery store, your dry cleaner, your local real estate office, coffee shop, etc. Regional commercial refers to something like a mall. So AV Mall has the regional commercial designation. It's where you see big box retail, you know, Super Walmart, Super Target, or other such big box retailers. We're also introducing 2 additional designations, one focused on visitor commercial, and what that includes is hotels, restaurants, breweries, and other supportive type of commercial uses that service those who work at Plant 42 and other residents in Palmdale, but also capture some of the demand from the traffic, or, you know, folks passing by on State Route 14 or even on 138 Palmdale Boulevard. The Employment Flex designation is intended to provide a variety of employment-focused uses, so those bring jobs. So you could see research and development, business parks, light industrial, general office, medical office. So a mix of office and supportive type of uses go into Employment Flex. In terms of industrial, we have general industrial, which allows for a variety of industrial uses, manufacturing, logistics, warehousing, etc. And then aerospace industrial, which is more focused on uses that are supportive of Plant 42 and its ancillary activities. As you know, Plant 42 is an integral part of the city's economy, and maintaining and preserving land for supportive uses for that is critical to the long-term fiscal health of the city. Other existing uses include public facilities for schools, parks, etc., and open space as well. And then the mineral resource extraction covers the quarry and extraction uses over on the southeastern part of the city. An additional designation is institutional, and that includes large institutions, colleges, medical centers, and other such facilities. I'll pause again for some questions on these land use designations.
So Simran, we have a few questions. One is from Williams. Are there environmental impact reports associated with this general plan?
Good question. Not yet. There will be once we have once we get further down in the process.
Okay. There's another question from Gwen Schiff. Are you concerned with wildlife preservation?
Yes, absolutely. The city's current general plan has a variety of policies and guidance on preservation of both the fauna and flora, so both wildlife as well as the natural resource communities in terms of vegetation. The new general plan will continue to build on those policy and that guidance, and hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. There's another question from Henrik, who is, as part of this general plan, are there any new zoning? Is any new zoning being introduced, or current ones changing? Not the location of land use, but the actual zoning.
again, a really good question. And the short answer for that is once the general plan is adopted, the city will do a zoning consistency analysis to see if zoning in certain areas need to be changed to be consistent with the general plan. And at that time, zoning may need to be changed for certain parcels.
Okay. There's another question that says from Kenneth Williams, do the plans include any future tech companies coming into the area to have better jobs?
Again, a good question. That is obviously a goal of the city to attract new companies who come to Palmdale to bring better jobs. And the general plan also contains an economic development element, which will have policies and strategies for attracting such companies to the city.
Okay, there's another question from Wilson De La Cruz. It says, are those anticipated vacant land to be developed in the process of being paved and accessible?
Again, a good question. I think the development of actual land will depend on what the proposal is and what the city's plans for expansion of utilities and infrastructure is to those areas. And the city has through a variety of tools that are available to the city is looking to prioritize certain areas for such investments. These are obviously very expensive efforts and are long-term efforts. So as the plan progresses and the city finalizes some of those plans, more information will be available. And Carlene or Megan, if you have anything to add to that, feel free to do so.
Sure, this is Carlene. So kind of piggybacking on what Simran said, the city is looking to try to partner with the county and some neighboring jurisdictions for what's called Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District. So we are having some pretty detailed conversations right now, and everything's looking good. So we'll make sure that we keep everyone updated, but essentially those will help kind of spur development with some infrastructure help. And yeah, so we'll make sure to keep the public informed. It's something that will end up going to council if we ultimately get the go ahead from the county. So.
Okay, we have another question from Jose Asensio. What are the differences between all the single family zoning varieties?
The short answer to that is it's lot size. If you want to get more information on that, we'll post a link. Actually, you should already have it, but Melissa will send out the link in the chat box to everyone that you can go in and look at what the lot size is for each of the single family designations. It's all available online. And Chester, let's wait on the rest of the questions so we can get through the presentation, and I think that we'll have plenty of time at the end to have additional things. Melissa, before we move on, let's run this poll here.
So we're going to launch our fourth poll here. You're going to see a screen pop up with a question. Do you agree with these land use categories? And then you have the option to select one of three responses: yes, neutral, or no, designations are missing from this list. Take another few seconds for folks to continue submitting their responses, and then we will share results with the group. If you haven't done so yet, please submit your response. We're going to be closing shortly. All right. And let's share the results. Simran, if you'd like to walk us through.
Sure, yeah. So 60% of respondents said yes. We covered all the designations. 20% said they're neutral, and then 20% said there are designations missing from the list. So those who think there are designations missing from their list, we'd love to hear from you as to what those are. You could add them to the questions list, send them as questions or comments, and we can discuss those as we later on in the presentation. Based on the analysis we did and the constraints with regard to the constraints and opportunities, the market study, etc., and then we focused on the core area of change. We have certain elements that are consistent across the three alternatives. And these are, and I'll walk you through those. The location of downtown around the transit area, transit station, and which is where the high-speed rail station is planned to be located. The city is currently in the process of preparing a specific plan for the downtown area, the transit area specific plan. Some of you may have attended meetings for that in the last couple of years as well. This plan capitalizes on the location of high-speed rail transit coming to Palmdale over the next many years. There's the California high-speed rail as well as private high-speed rail, which is planned to come connect Palmdale to Las Vegas. The operator for that is Virgin Trains. So with all the rail traffic that would come through and the passengers who would be here in Palmdale, the city is capitalizing on that new influx of visitors to Palmdale and creating a downtown for them as well as for all the residents in Palmdale. Avenue Q is intended to be a main street, and it's intended to be an active place with retail stores, restaurants, coffee shops, other amenities, and a place for people to gather and be a part of the active urban entertained life in Palmdale. The timing of adoption of that plan is it's supposed to be adopted later this year, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Carlene? Thank you. And the next aspect is the medical district, which is around the Palmdale Regional Medical Center on 10th Street West and Elizabeth Lake Road. And then regional commercial uses around the Antelope Valley Mall, which is located just to the west of State Route 14. All three alternatives have a mix of employment uses around Plant 42. So those are shown in the purple, the green, and the lighter blue here, which are the employment flex type uses. And then Palmdale Boulevard is envisioned to be a mixed-use corridor with residential uses on either side. So the three alternatives have different concepts as to what that might look like, and I'll go over those when I describe the alternatives. The land use framework also contains village centers and multi-use nodes across the city, which you can see these are in these squares and these circles spread out through the rest of the city. And the intent of these village centers is to provide neighborhood commercial services for residents and employees to access on a daily basis. These create complete neighborhoods, so the existing residents around can walk or bike to these areas for their daily needs and not have to get in their cars to drive to the larger shopping centers or big box area retail for their day-to-day needs. They're also intended to have other amenities such as coffee shops and restaurants, community centers. These are great locations for facilities for seniors and the youth within the city. And then with all three alternatives, parks, schools, and other amenities will be provided. All new residential development will be required to provide open space and park space per city standards, so that the residents in these new developments have ample space for their families and their kids to be outside and recreate. The preferred land use plan will also incorporate trails and other types of parks and open space. I'll pause again for any questions.
So Simran, we have a couple people who have raised their hands. So we're going to unmute the mic for Suzanne Reyna, who is going to ask a question. And Suzanne, if you can remember to unmute yourself as well.
You can type her question in the chat.
No, okay, so Suzanne, we can't hear you, so you can type your question in the chat function. And we'll now go to Vivian Phillips, who also has raised her hand. Vivian, if you could unmute your mic and ask your question. No?
So while we are waiting for Vivian, I see a question in the text box from Suzanne Reyna, and she asks, are there any UC schools that have been contacted to come here to educate our community so they can get these new tech jobs? Again, it's a good question, and we'll talk about the education district shortly. The city is always trying to attract higher education institutions to come to the city, and acknowledges that there is a need for those opportunities. That was something we heard a lot of during our previous engagement as well. Again, we'll continue to try and attract such institutions to Palmdale.
Okay, we also have another question from Kenneth Williams. Will there be more fire stations built as part of this development plan to adhere to the 5-minute distance rule to reach the nearby residential developments in emergencies?
So the general plan has a safety element which addresses response times and locational requirements for new fire stations, especially with regard to new residential development. So that will address that need.
All right, one more question. Simran, when is the anticipated completion of this high-speed train and light rail train to be operational?
The California high-speed rail is the schedule for that currently is in about 12 plus years, I believe. That's the time horizon, in the 2032 or so. Virgin Trains is anticipated to be here by 2025, if not a little bit sooner. Again, those are current plans, and since these are such huge infrastructure projects, delays can and sometimes do occur, but those are the projected timelines as of now.
All right, and one more question, Simran. Which lots of land are you considering for mineral extraction?
The lots that are currently designated mineral extraction will continue to stay that way. There are no plans to change the designations for those properties or add additional properties to that designation.
Great.
Okay. Melissa, did you want to run the next poll?
Yes, we have our 5th poll, which I will be launching now. This asks, to what extent do you agree with the framework map? Please select one of the following options, which include strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. Please take a minute and submit your responses. We'll have this open for the next few seconds.
Maybe folks still voting.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go ahead and close the poll. And I will share the results now.
Okay, so we have 65% who agree, 15% who strongly agree, and then 15% who are neutral. So all generally positive. So thank you for that.
And Simran, before we move on, there was one more question that we might want to pick up before you continue. I want to know what ordinances will be in place for industrial areas. The mineral extraction projects in the East Palmdale need to be enclosed behind aesthetic walls because they are an eyesore.
Thank you for that, Vivian. The general plan generally has guidance for screening, but that's something that's addressed more clearly in the zoning ordinance. And so the city will look at that more carefully as they look at updating their zoning ordinance, which I believe is also something that is planned for in the next couple of years. The city is looking for some grant funding to help them do that. Okay, let's get started on the description of the alternatives now. I should note that all 3 alternatives are consistent with the vision themes that I had presented earlier in the presentation, as well as the framework plan that we just looked at. And to reiterate, the purpose of the alternatives is to test different land use patterns and to evaluate the trade-offs between the alternatives. Starting with alternative 1, this alternative has aerospace and general industrial uses around Plant 42. You can see the aerospace industrial in the darker purple, and then industrial uses in the middle range of purple. The lightest lavender purple is the flex employment uses. We have the regional commercial node at AV Mall, and this alternative also includes a regional commercial node over on the east side near Palmdale Boulevard and 47th Street intersection. The housing densities around Palmdale Boulevard are intended to be fairly high, with apartments and townhomes located in that area. There's a large education district that's with higher education facilities that's planned adjacent to the medical center on the west side. So we have a medical center located at the current location, as well as the educational district just to the north of it. There's an additional medical district which is located around the Kaiser facility on Avenue S and 47th Street on the east side. And then this option, like all others, has village centers throughout the city that provide a mix of neighborhood retail and commercial uses. And these are surrounded by townhomes and cottage clusters and courtyard apartments. And the residential densities in this alternative are the highest around downtown and Palmdale Boulevard. And then in terms of industrial uses, it includes a moderate amount of aerospace industrial, minimal amount of general industrial, and the highest amount of employment flex of the 3 alternatives. Alternative 2 includes mostly aerospace, industrial, and manufacturing uses around Plan 42. There's more industrial uses, general industrial uses in this alternative than the previous one. Again, similar to Alternative 1, there's a regional commercial node over on the east side on 47th Street in Palmdale. And the current AV Mall obviously continues to be a major regional node, commercial node. The density of the housing around Palmdale Boulevard and downtown is lower density, so it's the lowest of the three alternatives. And this includes cottage clusters, courtyard homes, and other similar housing types. In this option, the education district is located on the east side around the AV College campus. That's located at 25th and Palmdale Boulevard. And for the medical district, we have two locations, expanded campus around the Kaiser facility on the east side and the continuation of the regional medical center on the west side. There's also more regional and visitor commercial uses located between Highway 14 or State Road 14 and Plan 42. Neighborhood centers in this option comprise of exclusively commercial uses, so there's no residential uses envisioned within those. The residential uses, as I noted, have the lowest density of the three alternatives. And then in terms of the mix of employment uses, this option has the highest amount of aerospace, industrial, a moderate amount of industrial, and then smaller amount of employment flex uses. Alternative 3 has the least amount of aerospace, industrial, and more general industrial. As you can see, the distribution of the colors around here. The regional commercial node on Palmdale Boulevard and 47th Street is the largest of the three options. There's middle density housing in the area around downtown and both sides of Palmdale Boulevard, and this includes low-rise walk-ups and townhouses, etc. In terms of education district, this has two education districts and they're smaller. We have one around the AV College campus and then the second one around the Aerospace Academy, both on Palmdale Boulevard on the east side. The medical district is expanded in its current location with the continuation of some medical uses around the Kaiser facility. The neighborhood commercial or the village centers in this option are allow for retail and commercial in a mixed-use setting. So there's more of higher density residential uses within those village centers, and these are likely to be in a vertical mixed-use format, allowing for opportunities for senior housing, where you can have seniors be able to access their daily goods and needs in close proximity. The residential densities in this option are in the middle range of the three alternatives. And then for industrial uses or employment uses, there's a moderate amount of more of a balance between aerospace industrial and general industrial and the minimal amount of employment flex. So how do these three alternatives compare? The major difference between the alternatives are tied to the distribution and mix of employment uses, the density of new housing in the area, focused area around downtown and Palmdale Boulevard, the location of the medical and education district, and the amount of regional commercial uses. This analysis compares the three alternatives to each other. The current general plan information is also provided in the blue bars to show how those compare to the current general plan if built out at the same levels. And by this analysis, we can see that alternative 1 provides the greatest number of housing units, while alternative 2 has the least. Alternative 3 has the most jobs, while alternative 1 has the alternative 2 has the least number of alternative 1 has the least number of jobs. The number of vehicle miles traveled per household is the highest for alternative 2, and this is a function of the densities of the housing. When you have housing that's spread out, it means you need to drive further out to access your daily goods and to get to your destinations. And tied to that, the annual household cost for water and energy is also the highest for alternative 2. Just as a comparison, the general plan as it's laid out today is higher than all 3 alternatives in terms of vehicle miles traveled every year and the annual household cost for transportation, energy, and water. And since the housing is most spread out, the portion of those walking or biking is the lowest in alternative 2. In alternative 1. And that's because, again, as I noted, when uses are spread out, you are more likely to use your car than be able to walk or bike to your destination. And this metric is the highest or best for the alternative with the most density, which is alternative 2. And again, as I noted, the current general plan has the least mode share for this metric. I'll pause for questions about the 3 alternatives, and then we have a few questions for you as well. That actually is the rest of the presentation. So now we can spend the next 50 minutes or so answering your questions and getting your feedback.
Okay, Simran, we have a question that came in via chat, text message. The survey meant higher education facilities and/or expansion. Where does this fall within the land use designation? Are there current proposals for UC schools?
Okay. Thanks, Chester. So as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, as a response to a similar question, there are no current proposals, but the city is always looking to attract higher education facilities, whether it be a UC, a Cal State, or even satellite campuses for other higher education institutions around the state. The designation for such uses would be in the institutional category, and those are shown in blue in our on the map.
All right, Miguel Rodriguez has raised his hand, so we're going to go ahead and unmute your mic, Miguel. If you could do the same, you'll be able to ask your question.
Sure, good afternoon, good morning. The question based on the 3 alternatives. So I know there's the plan and there's the 3 alternatives. Now, are the 3 alternatives based on, I know like alternative 1, there's the highest amount of, was like aerospace to lot vacancy. Is that based on the assumption like that say we would be able to best use that space for aerospace because there's a big company that wants to or has been talking or wants to kind of get some property, or I mean to say like, hey, you know, we're going to use all of this space for aerospace, but we really don't have anybody wanting any of that space, but just in case. Is that like what are the alternatives based on? Is that like on just what you guys think is the best, or have people or have businesses actually kind of said, hey, you know, where would be a good place for, you know, this or that?
Yeah, that is a really good question, and that's something, you know, as planners, we struggle with daily. The general plan is intended to be a long-term plan. It extends 25 years or even longer in some cases, and so we need to, you know, be able to predict the future to some extent. So, which obviously, since none of us have that crystal ball, what the general plan does and will do in this case is plan for the best case scenario and allow for enough flexibility in the designations to allow the city to shift direction if needed. So the way the land use designations will be written will allow, it will not be a very narrow list of uses, but it will allow for a variety of uses that are compatible with the intent of that designation. So to answer your question, in the aerospace industrial, the primary type of uses are those that are supportive of what's going on in Plant 42. But
Sure.
they will, that designation will still continue to allow for other uses that are supportive of or ancillary to those uses, but will not be limited to just that one type of use.
Okay, so you're saying as it progresses or as everything figures out, if they are not able to fill all that vacancy for, let's say, aerospace, then you guys can say, oh, you know what, but we can still use it for manufacturing, and so then we would use less space or more space, or we still have this amount of space, stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have another question, Simran, coming from Gwen Schiff. It says, I see that some of the areas on the map are designated SP or specific purpose. What exactly does specific purpose mean?
Specific plan, and I'm not sure which map you're looking at. So I can't totally answer, but if you're looking at on the existing general plan, there are areas which are designated specific plan, and those areas have a specific plan document that was adopted by the city council to govern land use within that, the boundaries of that specific plan. So the specific plan contains zoning for that those parcels and also the land use designations for those parcels.
Great. There's another question from Joseph Martinez, and it says, at any point will there be anything done to the freeway exits in Palmdale areas that are being upgraded? Something like Lancaster and Santa Clarita has, so when residents and visitors come into the city, they see a welcoming entrance into Palmdale.
Okay. I think I'll have Carlene answer this one.
Yep. So it's great feedback. We are currently working with Caltrans as well as the city of Lancaster on Avenue M to create kind of a welcome to city signage and perhaps some art at that location. And we're constantly trying to, navigate that relationship with Caltrans because the 14 is their facility. But we are looking for different aspects in order to make the entryway into our city a little bit more official and more attractive. So not necessarily as part of the general plan, but something that our public works team and our capital improvement team is working on.
Okay. And I'll add on to that. The general plan also has a circulation element, and we will be looking at the demand created by new development and how to best absorb that in the circulation system. So the general plan will have recommendations for additional improvements to the roadway network if needed, based on how the land use patterns are established.
All right, there's another question. What are the trade-offs between having smaller and larger education districts? This is from Marcos Martinez.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again, Chester?
Sure. What are the trade-offs between having smaller and larger education districts?
That's a good question. The trade-offs are, wow, they're really good questions today. The trade-offs are, so the way we are looking at when you have a concentration of educational uses in one area, you begin to build a campus-like environment and synergy between those uses. So you have students there, you have faculty there, and then with that captive audience, you begin to get additional services which locate around those facilities to create a more vibrant area, and it's more efficient for the users to be able to use all the amenities that are available there. If you have two smaller districts that are further out, the advantage of that is what that allows you to do is to build on what the proximal uses that are already there. So in this case, in the alternative where we have two educational districts, we had one around the AV College campus, and then one around Palmdale Aerospace Academy. Those can build, since those are already existing and in place, by having two educational districts around both of those leverages the location of both institutions.
All right, we have another question that says, how and when will we know which alternative will be selected? This is from Kenneth Williams.
So right now we have an ongoing survey open to the community. It's been open for about 3 weeks and will continue to be open for feedback for another 2 weeks or so. So firstly, I encourage all of you to take the survey if you haven't, and to get your friends and family members to do the same. Secondly, we'll take the results of that survey and we'll compile those results and take those to the Planning Commission and City Council in September. We'll be presenting the alternatives to them as well, and then we'll bring in, along with that, the feedback we got from the community. Those meetings I'll go through the dates later on, but they're in mid-September, so it would be great if you wanted to come and attend those meetings to see what they are saying. So those meetings are on September 10th for the Planning Commission and September 15th for the City Council. Once we get their feedback and direction, we'll take all of that input and begin to work on the preferred alternative, which then we'll actually bring back to the community later this fall. Probably be closer to the end of the year. It might be the first of next year.
And Simran, this is Carlene. I just wanted to, I guess, clarify that, just as a heads up to everyone, that the City Council and Planning Commission meetings are actually closed to the public, but they are live streamed on our website as well as channel 7 or 27, our local channel. So there is the ability to provide an e-comment, and the presentation and the staff report are available prior. So if anybody has any comments that they would like to include, feel free to do that. And you can always email the general plan email as well, and we will look at those for this specific item.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, Carly.
All right, we have another question again from Kenneth Williams. It says, Alternative 3 seems to add more jobs locally and diversifies job industry, which will help build local economy. So is there any census on commuting residents who would prefer to work in Palmdale versus commuting, and have those kinds of companies taken part in this land use plan?
So we haven't done an official survey, but as someone who has had a long commute in the past, I think speak for all those who have long commutes that there's always a preference not to. So if those kind of jobs were available in Palmdale, I think most will want to continue to live and work in the city.
Okay. We have another question from Marcos Martinez. It says, how do the general plans of nearby cities factor into developing the Palmdale general plan?
Good question. We are aware of the plans that the neighboring cities have in place, and we take those into account in terms of location of where their facilities are. So, for example, we know where the location of AV College in Lancaster is. So, providing a campus, educational campus which competes with that location wouldn't be productive for either Palmdale or Lancaster. Instead, we want to look at the region more, collectively, so that we can leverage the resources that are in the Antelope Valley best.
Okay. We also have Miguel has raised his hand again. So Miguel, we're going to unmute your mic, and if you can do the same, you'll be able to ask us another question.
Yes. Hi. Sorry, I ask a lot of questions.
No, they're great. Thank you.
Yeah, this is actually the first time ever that I probably like in 15 years that I've ever talked about this, anything that has to do. But I remember probably since I was little or a while back. So I know I couldn't quite tell if in that city plan they had the California high-speed rail, and then I don't remember where, I talk about reading, where they might bring like the freeway of the 138 by the farther, I'm not sure, but are any of those accounts as far as infrastructure, not residential or companies or lots, as far as like companies that come in, but I'm talking about like infrastructure, like I know you guys have the central station where they have the train tracks and all that and the buses, but is there something that is in the works for that to be expanded so that it's easier to move around? Because I know one of the biggest issues, like you said, is having to drive in traffic and having to drive long drives. And so I wanted to see is any of the alternatives or the general city plan take into account already having had maybe the train that's supposed to go to Vegas, and then the one that goes like through California, right? And then the freeway being expanded, any of that be included, or is that not yet done because we don't have the use or the land use for it yet? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. So let me see if I understand you correctly. You're asked with my response. So the downtown is proposed to be around the high-speed rail station, and that's to be located between Avenue Q and Palmdale Boulevard along the tracks. Now that station, today the transportation center is north of Avenue Q. So the city is planning on combining all these different modes of transportation, buses through the transportation center, Metrolink that already comes to Palmdale and is proposed to be expanded, the California high-speed rail station, and then the Virgin train station. All of those will be combined into one multimodal station in the location I just described. The timing of some of these is obviously different than one another, so that's something that the city is still considering as it plans for that multimodal station. The freeway, the Highway 138, which is the high desert corridor, I think that's what you were referring to, Miguel. That is going to be not, well, it's not intended to contain a freeway component, at least for now. So that will be the route of the Virgin train and other trails along that, but no freeway component is currently under consideration. It was originally, but I believe Caltrans has made some changes to their funding plans.
Okay, and then as far as, sorry, on that, just add on that, as far as the train, I mean, the bus routes with the inclusion of more businesses and around the Palmdale area, or the on 47th and R, and I mean on Palmdale Boulevard and 47th, on 47th and S, are they going to be expanded as the, like, do you guys have the ability to expand that as it gets bigger, or the plan you guys already have is already at max capacity to what we can expand the bus routes or bus ways or whatnot?
Yeah. So Antelope Valley Transit Authority provides bus service, and we will continue to coordinate with them through the plan. And they base their routes on built development, right, where the demand is today, but they also take into account where demand is anticipated to be in the future. So as a part of the general plan, there's coordination with them to consider adding service, expanding routes, improving headways, etc.
And I'll just add to that, as projects come through the city planning process as well, each project has a recommendation to coordinate with AVTA, Antelope Valley Transit Authority, to see if that project kind of warrants a new bus stop or a new bus route. And so it's not only something that's taken in consideration with the larger general plan, but also on a smaller level as we receive those projects as they come in to the city.
Great. All right, we have one more question. So if you have something else that you would like to ask, now would be the time to type it in the chat function or text us or raise your hand. So the final question that we have is, what is the total number of participants in today's webinar? This comes from Teresa, or looks like Teresa Hamro. So we had 56 people register for this webinar today. And throughout the webinar, it looks like we've gotten close to 30 people. That it's hard to tell in real time because people are leaving and coming into the meeting. And then we had some people that were outside of the webinar just on the phone as well. So it looks like we were in the 30s today. We'll have an exact number after we do the analytics from the meeting, but that's what the numbers are telling us from what's going on over here on this side.
We also have a couple of more questions for the group. So maybe we can run those questions first, Chester, and then we can go back to questions in the chat box after that. Melissa?
Yeah, so we'll open up our 6th poll. It's launching now. The question asks, which metric is most important to you when evaluating the 3 land use alternatives? Select one of the following. Your options are households, jobs, vehicle miles traveled, percentage of people walking and biking, or annual household costs like transportation, energy, and water. We'll wait a few more seconds to collect more responses, and then we'll share the results with the group. All right. We're closing that poll and sharing results.
Okay. So the most important metric for all of you, 56%, is jobs. That's something we have consistently heard in all of our meetings that we've had over the last several weeks. So that's a consistent theme for us to note. The next highest is number of households or homes, so more housing in the city. And then the next metric is 11%, which is percentage of people walking and biking, and then 6% for annual household costs. All right. Jester, there are a couple of other questions as well, or have we gone through all of them? I know there were some at the beginning.
Yeah, it looks like we've gone through all the questions that I see. And I don't see anyone else has raised their hand either. So it looks like we're got through them all.
Okay, great. Melissa, did you want to ask the last question? It's actually second to last question. While we would still like you all to go take the survey, the official survey that's on our website, and Melissa has shared the link through the chat box. We do want to take a informal poll right now from the attendees to see if you all have a preference for one of the three alternatives. So, Melissa, let's run that poll.
Yeah. So this question asks right now, which alternative do you like the most? Obviously, your options are alternative 1, alternative 2, or alternative 3. And we'll wait a few more seconds to collect more responses from the group.
And Simran, after this poll, there is another question that did come in, so we'll ask that afterwards.
Okay.
If you haven't voted yet, please submit your preferred alternative, and we'll be sharing those momentarily. All right.
Okay.
Here are the results.
So I think seems like we have a clear winner. Alternative 3 is 53%, 26% for alternative 1, and alternative 2 is 21%. So thank you for that. Jester, you said there was a question.
Yeah, there's another question from Marcos Martinez. It says, how much consideration is given to the weather? With a wide temperature range in Palmdale, how much emphasis is on people walking?
Weather obviously is important. You know, Palmdale is in the high desert, so you have a range of temperatures. It gets cold, it gets windy, it gets hot in the summer, and when weather is is hostile, then you tend to not walk or bike, and that's understood. But there are enough times of the day, including later in the evenings, early in the mornings, where the weather is actually very conducive to walking. And so that there needs to be that emphasis. So it's not to the exclusion of people using their cars, but it's offering more choices for people to do, to walk or bike in a safe manner. Some of the recent state legislation also requires cities to consider complete streets, which is looking at streets as being places that are usable and safe for people of all ages, all abilities, and by that I mean, you know, be handicap access, disabled access be provided, and have appropriate or easy ways for street crossings, you know, for bicyclists and other, you know, the children and seniors, as I noted.
Okay. We have Miguel who's raised his hand again. So again, we're going to unmute your mic, Miguel, and you'll be able to ask us another question.
Okay. So in regards to, I mean, the general plan, it showed where the residential was, single family homes, multifamily homes. Is there, I guess not a plan, but is there a thought to um, trying to, or trying to keep housing within like the center, the city, let's say between Palmdale Boulevard and Avenue S and 47th and Sierra Highway, where let's say like on 70th and Palmdale Boulevard, there's houses where KB Homes is making homes farther out. Is there an incentive to kind of keep them in? So as more homes are built in the, say, the middle, it can bring more businesses towards those areas instead of being a more spread out. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does, Miguel. You're raising some really great points today. So thank you for your thoughts. When you have development occur across, Palmdale is 100 square miles. It's a very large city. It's, I think, the 7th largest in terms of area in the state of California. When you have development that's spread out, you don't have all the services that are located close to it. So if you have small pockets of residential development that are occurring in one part of town, and then some across the city and another location, it is not easy to. It's more expensive to provide services there, and then often those locations don't have the infrastructure already in place. So the general plan can encourage development in a certain core area. So the goals and policies that go into the document can and should prioritize development within that central core area so that most development occurs there. But I also noted that the city, each property has a designation which allows a property owner to develop there. But most likely it will be more expensive to develop in those locations than it would be in the central core.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Simran, that takes us through all of our questions. We had some really good questions today. I would just mention before I turn it back over to Carlene that we will be posting this recorded webinar on the project website. So you will be able to look at that or recommend that your neighbors or friends go view it in the future when they have time. We thank everyone again for participating today and taking time out of their busy schedules to do that. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Carlene.
Actually, Chester, I just want to quickly talk about next steps, and then we'll let Carlene close it out. Firstly, we have an ongoing virtual workshop and survey, and since Melissa, let's ask how many folks here have already taken the survey. Let's run this, our very last poll.
Great idea. Yeah. So let's launch our last poll, which asks, have you participated in the virtual workshop and taken the survey? Your options are yes or no. This will tell us how many folks who are in this event today have already taken our survey, which would be great. We'll wait a few more seconds to gather some more responses. All right, thank you, everyone. Let's share the results.
Okay, so it seems like 3/4 of those who responded have taken the survey, so that's really good. The other 24%, please take the survey right away. While all this information is fresh in your mind, give us your input, and then ask your neighbors, your family members, your friends to do the same. It's really important to get feedback from as many Palmdale residents as we can. So please take the survey. Melissa, you're sharing the chat, the link again in the chat box, right? So again, please take it right now. And then, as I noted, the survey is open for another couple of weeks. We want as many of you to respond as possible, give us your feedback, and then we'll be taking that feedback to the Planning Commission on September 10th, and then the City Council on September 15th. And as Carlene described, you can view those meetings online. They're live cast through the city's website and other channels. You can provide written comments at those meetings as well. And then we'll be developing the preferred alternative and more detailed policies for all the other aspects of a general plan over the next year or so, and then we'll be coming back to you for additional feedback at several stages as well.
All right, Simran, we had a couple more people that wanted to ask questions. So
sure.
Miguel has raised his hand again, so let's unmute Miguel's mic and we'll have him ask another question.
All right, Miguel.
Okay, sorry, just not really a question. Is more into a regard into the way that the way that I found out about today's webinar, and in general about city planning commission issues, problems, things that come up, is actually not that good. As far as, you know, when people know, I know I'm 28 and people in my area, you know, we're working and whatever. We talk about what should happen in the next couple of years or what we could do and stuff like that, but it's really hard to get. I know the information is out there, but it's really hard for us to see it if we're not looking for it specifically. So I just kind of wanted to, you know, give you guys kind of the way you guys portray the info may not be getting out to the most amount of people. I know you have to be interested in this kind of stuff to even actually start looking for it. So it was just kind of a heads up as far as when you know, when we want to get this stuff out there, because it's really important. You know, it's going to affect me in 15 years when I buy a home. You know, if my house is going to be worth more, if I'm going to live in a good area and stuff like that. But it's not really accessible as far as for people can just have it like, hey, you know, I get a message on my phone, or so that people are actively engaged in it. So kind of just giving you, you know, my input on it. I actually came up on this webinar by accident, which when I saw it, I just assumed, hey, it's another one of the city things that they're doing. It probably has nothing to do with me. I can't say anything. It's all the people that are the businesses that are in charge, or that are the city, you know, the mayor's in charge. So it just, I don't know, just with that, maybe some more type of advertising, different type of advertising to put it out there so that people can get involved.
I'm going to jump in.
Let me ask a quick question first, though. So, Miguel, how did you said you stumbled upon this webinar by accident? Can you tell us exactly how you learned about it?
Yeah. So I was driving on the 5 freeway, and in Burbank, there's an In-N-Out by the Burbank train station, and there's a lot of construction going on, and a friend of mine said, you know, hopefully we get this bullet train built. And I said, well, I thought they weren't going to do it because I live in Palmdale, and in Palmdale, it doesn't seem like there's anything going for the bullet train. And so they're fixing it or whatever. And then I noticed, so I looked it up and I said, hey, the bullet train, how is it? And I noticed, you know, that they have the plans like in the middle, like Merced and all that, they're building it or whatnot. And then I looked at Palmdale, and then I put, when is it going to be built in Palmdale? And then I started looking into the websites, and then after like the third click that I did, then it came up general plan. And then I said, I don't even know what a general plan is. So then I clicked on it, and then it said, you know, what Palmdale's going to look like in the future and this and that. And I started looking into it. But if you're not interested, if you just kind of looking through, you will not assume that you can, you know what I mean? Like what it's for. You would just assume, oh, it's another just a website. And so it kind of, I did a lot to kind of get to it, you know?
Hi, Miguel.
Okay, thank you for that, Carlene. Go ahead.
So I'm so happy that you were able to stumble across it. I apologize that it kind of took some layers. I actually, hopefully we have some of your contact information. I would love to maybe if you had some time to pick your brain on additional ways, because we've really sat down and feel like we have done a lot of different ways to get this into people's hands. And so, you know, any additional feedback or input, how we can get it into more hands and more eyeballs and all of that would be wonderful. So I don't know if Celeste or Chester, if you have contact information, or if I can maybe figure out a way to get it offline so you don't have to share it with the greater public, but I would love to talk to you offline about some additional ways if you'd be willing to have that conversation.
You know what? I would actually, I'm sorry, I would actually love to. And in that regards, it's not, I mean, I've seen it around town, but it's not specific as far as what you guys present. It's just kind of an overview where it says, you know, Palmdale city meeting. And then they're like, I don't know what that is. So I'm not interested. But I've noticed that here, especially here in the Antelope Valley, I've been here for 15 years and I grew up through the high school and everything. It's word of mouth, but it's word of mouth when somebody is interested. So I can give you an example. When you guys built the Krispy Kreme on Rancho Vista, everybody who's a young person, you know, high school, college, that owns a car knows about a Krispy Kreme meet, which is a car meet. And you don't know who it is, who's there, what it is, but you know of it. And it doesn't matter if you don't have a good car or a bad car. If you have a car, you are there. So that type of situations where people meet, or even at the Sonics or different things for different situations, it's the perfect opportunity to, you know, put something down, tell them about it, and then.
I definitely hear you. And just, I think that there's some other questions, and I would really love to talk to you more offline. I think that it sounds like you have some good ideas, so I'd love to be able to connect. And it looks like, I think I saw Chester or Celeste kind of shaking their head that we can get contact information. So thank you.
Of course, thank you.
I do want to.
Miguel did register, so we have his information. So Carlene will obviously be able to provide that to you, and you'll be able to make that connection.
I did want to note that, you know, there was of the few things we did do for spreading the word about this meeting, and that included a full page ad both in English and Spanish, a flyer in the Palmdale Connections, which goes out to every single home in the city. There are Facebook ads. There's Facebook feed and feed through the other social media channels of the city. There are flyers that went out to churches, and there were flyers about the meeting given out at the food bank, at AV Mall and other locations. I don't think Krispy Kreme was on that list, so we'll have to think about adding that in. Pick up a donut at the same time.
All right, I think Carlene.
We have a last question from Kenneth Williams.
From where?
Kenneth Williams is a hand raising.
And then Miguel, if you can get the word out to your friends who didn't.
I'm sorry, Simran.
Care.
This is Chester again. Kenneth Williams raised his hand at the last minute, so I want to make sure we get to him. So Kenneth, we're going to unmute your mic now, and then you can do the same.
Hi, thank you all. This meeting has been great, and as mentioned, I came across this last minute on Nextdoor. That's the only way I found out about it. And these things are really interesting to me, especially when it comes to like future development and growth of cities. So I just wanted to know, is there ways to know who's the like environmental agency taking part on this development? Is there like a direct resource link where I can just find more on the environmental impacts, because that has more of the long-term effect on communities, and just taking part in writing some of those from the past, being in the environmental sector, it's something that I find that's really important for any developing city. So if there's any other outside links or resources that can direct me towards that and towards this, that would be great.
Yeah. So thank you, Kenneth, and we'd love to hear more from you, and I'm glad you were able to join us today. So a lot of background information on the project is available on the project website, which is on your screen, palmdale2045.org. Some of our existing conditions reports are available there, including information on the environmental context. As the plan progresses, we will be developing a program EIR, or environmental impact report, for the general plan, which will have more detailed information about the plan and the analysis of the environmental impacts per CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. So that is still to come, the detailed EIR. But in the meantime, there's information on the website that I think you'll find useful.
Okay, we have another question, Simran. Was Amazon part of this overview?
And I think the question is asking if the proposal for an Amazon facility here part of this review. Is that the question? I'm not totally sure.
So I'm actually,
Carlene, did you want?
Yeah, so actually I'm going to hand it off to Megan. She is the project manager on the existing Amazon site.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Yes. So I believe the question is, was Amazon part of what we're looking at now? So Amazon went into an existing building within a specific plan area, like what we were referring to earlier, where there are different zoning regulations and whatnot. So Amazon is underway, and for those that don't know, it's off of Technology Drive, just east of 10th Street West, and it's actually in the end stages of construction, so that should be open here in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Okay, I think that is officially all the hands and questions that we can see over here. So maybe now I'll turn it over to Carlene to say goodbye.
Great, thanks, Chester. And just to speak to how I think it was Kenneth, how you found out, I'm so happy to hear that Nextdoor was effective, because that was actually one of the ways that we advertised. So at least we know one person got on here through that avenue. But like I said before, we just really appreciate everyone's time today. I know that, about 2 hours that we were able to communicate together. So thank you for being present and providing great input and feedback. As Simran said, please take the survey and pass it along. We really want to hear from everyone in this city. We're, popping up at the transportation center and various, actually Walmarts and Targets, just to try to see if we can get people engaged and get that survey information out there. So any way you guys can spread the word and do that, it would be great. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And thank you so much for your participation. It's been really wonderful.
And on behalf of our entire team, thank you everyone again for being here, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.